All right. So once again, thank you so much for bearing with me today, and I really appreciate you all being here. My name is Amber Whitfield. I am the programs coordinator for the Society for History and Racial Equity, and we are now starting our Youth Summit on Racism. So I want to go ahead and just get started with everyone introducing themselves. So could my moderators please go ahead and give their names, their affiliation with S.H.A.R.E, and tell us at least one favorite thing you have liked to do during quarantine. Jen, do you want to get started, or Megan?
Sure, I'll go ahead. So my name is Jen Greger, and I'm on the board of S.H.A.R.E for 4 years. I started out as an intern when it was Southwest Michigan Black Heritage Society. One of my favorite things I'm doing during quarantine is actually I'm a judge for the 2020 Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. So that was something I came upon, which I'm super excited about. So that's been super awesome.
Awesome, that's really cool.
All right, well, hi everyone, my name is Megan. I am an intern for S.H.A.R.E this semester. I attend Western Michigan University, and I'm a senior studying African American Studies. My favorite thing to do during quarantine is love on my little guy, Finn, right here, who's gonna be helping me out through this whole thing.
He's really cute.
Thank you, he's my pride and joy.
Awesome. So I'm gonna kind of go by like who's in my little corral at the top. Brianna, could you go ahead and tell us your name? Well, of course we know that's you, and your age, the school you attend, and then like your favorite thing to do during quarantine.
Hi, my name's Brianna. I'm doing a counseling major with Sienna through LMC. I'm 23 years old, and I feel very lame for saying this, but all I've been doing is binge watching stuff and reading, I guess.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's kind of all that we have to do right now anyways. All right, awesome. Layla, could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Layla, and I guess my favorite thing to do during quarantine is sleep and eat and watch TV all day. That's pretty much it.
All right. How old are you and what school do you go to?
I'm 16 and I go to Berrien Springs High School.
Nice. Which I am an alumni of, just so everybody knows. Cameron, go ahead.
I'm Cameron. I'm 15. I go to Battle Creek Central High School. Basically, through the quarantine, I've just been watching TV and playing video games the whole time.
All right. Do you have a favorite video game in particular?
Right now, it's Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Nice.
I've been playing that for the most part.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Jenna?
Hello, my name is Jenna Anderson. I am 17 years old. I attend Berrien Springs High School, and my favorite thing to do during quarantine is sleep and binge watch TV shows.
I'm starting to see a cycle here. You guys are all kind of doing the same thing, huh?
Basically.
But that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. Kyra, go ahead.
Kyra, I'm turning 19. I go to Eastern Michigan University. I'm also an alumni of Berrien Springs High School, and I'm a special education major.
Cool. What's your favorite thing to do during quarantine? Also, could you speak up a little bit for us?
I sleep because I don't have cheer practice anymore, so I'm mainly just catching up on my sleep.
All right. Yeah, I remember cheerleading. It's difficult to an extent.
College cheer is no joke.
Oh yeah, I bet. It's nothing like Berrien Springs cheer, that's for sure. Let's see, is Camilla with us? Is she anywhere? No, hopefully she'll come back. All right. Livea, could you introduce yourself? Oh, here, let's see. I think that she hopped off for one moment. But while we wait for her, we'll go ahead and get started. So as of right now, one of the very large topics that's kind of circulating in media and just talk of younger adults is just racism in schools and extracurricular activities. And so let's kind of start off our conversation with just like subtle racism, what that is, and how can we respond to that in and out of the classroom. So if anyone doesn't know, subtle racism tends to be a kind of a backhanded compliment or just a very sly way of putting in a comment or reply of something that isn't very nice of any sort. And it does tend to focus on just any types of stereotypes or aspects of anybody. So does anyone want to kind of get started and like list off a time that someone has given you like a backhanded compliment or some sort of subtle racism? Kyra, would you like to start for us?
Okay. So, like, you want, okay, never mind. Okay. So, I'll have to say one time I was going to work and I was late for work and I passed this car and he followed me. He ended up following me. And like when I got to work, I got to the parking lot, he was behind me. And like his whole car had like the Confederate flag on it and stuff. And like he got out the car and he was like, "Don't ever pass me again." Like he was just like screaming at me. Then he called me a nigger at the end. And then he was like, "Don't go back to the hood where you come from." And it just kind of made me mad because he didn't even know me and he kind of just judged me. And I was already going to work, so, and I was with kids. I worked with kids, and so I just wasn't in the right mindset. So that kind of just brought me down, like brought my self-esteem down because he's just like attacked me for doing how to like driving. Like I could pass at that part, so I don't understand why he was like mad at me. So I
Yeah.
think that was probably the worst racist thing I ever went through.
Okay. Does anyone else want to go next? Don't be shy.
I know in like a lot of my classes, a common thing I hear a lot from a lot of my peers is the comment is, "Oh, you're pretty," or a colored, or like a black girl or an Asian girl, and it's like, no, I'm pretty. Like that's it. You don't have to. You can just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that there definitely is a lot of times that I've heard that, especially when I was dating again. And it was like, it always came up as the very first thing that someone thought to say to me. And I'm like, well, aren't I just pretty? Doesn't that make sense to just for me to just be pretty? So yeah, I can definitely, I've heard that one before. Anyone else?
So like through sports, I've heard you people run fast, and I was a little like, I was like, you people as in like African Americans, or like, because I know stereotypes are like African Americans are the athletic type and like stuff like that. But when people refer to you people as in to a person, I feel like you could just say, "Hey, Billy, you run fast." Like you don't have to say you people, or you could refer to someone as their name or like get to know them. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I think
Anyone
I
else?
also went through that too. Like, because when I was in track, they like my coach made like all my relay teams all African American. So, because he was like, "Oh, you people run fast," so it's kind of like I don't know. I was on the relay team, so like I don't know. Just I didn't think he should have said that. You know, as a coach, he should have just said if you're fast, he should go by numbers, not by your skin. Like so I went through that too.
This might be like a thing that Amber and Layla to some extent went through because we both went to kind of elementary schools that were mostly white and that sort of thing. But also the idea of just kind of, I heard a lot the like, oh, you talk like a white person now, or like, yeah, you're black or you're biracial, but you're not like that kind of like that sort of thing, where you would hear that a lot, or they'd be like, oh, have you heard this new song by insert any black artist? And it's like, no, I don't really listen to that kind of music. I don't listen to everyone that looks exactly like me. Just, little things like that, where it's like, you probably shouldn't have said that. I can tell you're trying not to be mean, but the fact that that was your go-to is a little off.
Yeah, definitely. Just a little bit like more background on kind of like what Brianna said. Myself, and Layla, who is my sister, we growing up went to a very Lutheran Christian-based private school, and so of course they were more predominantly white, which it was a good education, but there was always still that little bit of an issue there where we were probably the only African American children out of a classroom of 20 kids, which that may not seem like a lot because I know that some classes are larger than that. But yeah, when you calculate in the fact that there's maybe one or two, it does kind of it makes you kind of like look and realize, am I really the only one in the room? So yeah. Does anyone else want to share? Okay. Hmm.
So like what Brianna was saying, like it does like actually hurt my feelings when people do that because it makes me feel like, oh, am I supposed to act a certain way because you believe that all black people are ghetto and loud and they just fight all the time with each other? Am I supposed to act like that? Or just because I talk a certain way and I don't do certain things, it makes me like act like a white girl or another race or something.
Yeah, I understand. So now that we kind of have gone through like some of the different things that people have said, kind of like what and like how that makes you feel, how do you think we could best combat this type of situation? Does anyone want to get started with that?
Well, for me personally, since I am white, it's for me it is making sure that I'm not generalizing people, I'm not stereotyping people, and when like other white people, such as like friends, family, anything, and they could say something that could somewhat generalize or stereotype someone, I'm always like, are you sure? Do you know them personally? Like, I'm always double checking people. Like, do you know that for a fact, or are you just assuming?
Mm-hmm.
Just me making sure that I personally am like getting to know someone and not just assuming things about them.
Exactly. Anyone else want to join in, please?
I think at least for me, part of it is like, I don't think that they intend it in a mean way. A lot of the time, some people obviously do. Like what happened to Kyra, obviously they were trying to hurt you, and that was a horrible thing that they did. But some people, I think, genuinely just grow up in areas where they don't interact with a lot of people who don't look like them, so they don't know or like, and obviously this isn't mostly in America, but if you meet people from other countries that are like pretty, everyone tends to look the same, they can get really confused. And it's a weird thing of that they need to educate themselves, and it's a difficult thing because I think they don't, part of them don't want to, some of them never want to educate themselves, but then there's also the idea of some people you just kind of need to adapt the area you're in and be polite to the people around you. And I think sometimes people kind of act like it's like, oh, I'm seeing a thing that I never see in real life, and they don't really realize that's a person. It's just more of a novelty to them, and they don't put forth the effort of thinking of them as another human being, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like piggybacking on what Brianna said, I feel like it's a form of ignorance because you're surrounded by a certain group of people your whole life, and when you see another group of people, you don't really know how to present yourself or like how to respect that group of people. So like a way you can combat that, you just, for one, make sure you're not doing it to people, and two, just like assume good attention and like just in the back of your mind just say, wow, that's not okay, but maybe they don't know that's not okay, and you can say, hey, that's not okay, or just ignore it and just let them go about their day.
Okay. Um, yeah, it's really just it's very important that we kind of just hold people accountable, which I know that sometimes that can be hard because everyone is so quick to get defensive about when you're trying to talk to them, because of course nobody wants to ever be wrong. And I think that if, when you have friends or other counterparts that have these types of, try to say these types of things, that we should be able to pull them aside and have a conversation and tell them, hey, I don't really appreciate what you said. And, I know that you think that maybe this was okay to say, but why don't you try saying it like this? It's very important to be able to feel comfortable enough to have these conversations, and also for them to be open enough to hear what people are trying to tell them, so that, it doesn't happen again. And it not it not only does it not happen again, but it also is an education moment and not a belittling moment. Um, so, so do you think that schools provide a foundation for like subtle racism to just be around? Because I know that, Kyra, you mentioned that your coach said something a little out of line, and do you think, your teachers do you think that your teachers also partake in these types of things too, when you're sitting in the classroom and probably talking about history or geography or things like that?
At Eastern, no, but at Berrien, I feel like, well, in Berrien, I wasn't the best student, so I think that a lot of a lot of their comments probably came from me being showing my anger, and so I feel like it just depends on it. But at Eastern, I do feel like they do a good job in the classroom. But as a cheer and college cheer, I'm it's only 3 Black people on my team, and some of them came there. They were raised, everybody's raised different. So I came from a different background, so I think that I view things different. So I do think my coach kind of she says a lot of things that are like out of pocket, like that are disrespectful. So I don't really, I don't know. I just kind of take it because, I'm on my team and I do it for my team. I don't think she does a good job at it, but I mean, she's the coach, so she can kick
Mhm.
me off at any time. So I think, but other than that, in a classroom at Eastern, it was good, but at Berrien, it was a little different.
Yeah, for sure. All right, does anyone else have any last minute comments?
Yeah, I do. So I don't know about other people, but for my history class, when my teacher's talking about like Chinese history, he automatically looks at me and asks me about stuff, but I'm not Chinese, so I have no idea, and just like it's really awkward in class.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know. I don't like that attention.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that we've all kind of had that feeling, even if it wasn't really there, that when we start talking about a certain part of history, that everyone kind of turns around to look at you as if you're all of a sudden the ambassador for your race, which of course isn't fair to you because it's not like you grew up in the native country, or even if you did, that still doesn't mean that you have to speak for everybody that looks just like you.
I also think that if we are in history class, I think some teachers, if we're talking politically, like political or like past presidents that are Republicans or Democrats, they kind of like, I felt like when I was in high school, my teacher kind of looked at me if we were talking about Barack Obama or if we were talking about John F. Kennedy. So I think it was also a, like a native way, but also if we're talking about politicals and politics and stuff. So I think that because you will automatically think that a black person is a Democrat. So I think he kind of, I don't know, I kind of felt like he put me on the spot. Like if he just like looked at me, like you don't know what I am. So I just think I agree with that. So
Yeah.
I've had that kind of thing happen when I was in a advanced literature course or something, and we read a book that had the N word in it, and they kept like looking over me at me while they were reading aloud, like I needed to give them permission or something to read from the book or something, or like I was gonna do something in the middle of class or whatever, which was a little weird. But I've never had like a situation where kind of a teacher made it weird. It was usually students. I actually had, ironically enough, a class based on race and ethnic groups, and one of the girls got frustrated. White girl who was sitting near me in the back got frustrated, threw her books down, and walked out in the middle of class because she didn't like what we were talking about. And it was just other students giving their experience. And I was like, why'd you sign up for this class? You had to know we were going to talk about stuff like this. Like,
Yeah, yeah, like I said, it's just very important that we're able to sit and have serious conversations, and that everyone just kind of has to take in everyone's stories and take them for what they are, and not trying to make your own assumptions of what you've seen or how your friends are or how your family is. Even if you do have a person that identifies like that in your family, because like we said, everyone is different. So before we jump off that topic, Jen, since you are one of our teachers, has there ever been a time that you've seen any of your students kind of give some subtle racism, and or has any of your students ever talked to you about that, just kind of like from a teacher's perspective?
Yeah, we've had conversations about it. Where we've talked about where does that happen in the school? Is it happening in the classroom? Is it happening as kids are walking down the hall in the lunchroom, and stuff like that? And so we talk about how racism kind of looks different in every school. It will look different. There are common themes, but some schools it looks very different in. So students have talked to me about how a lot of those microaggressions, which is what those kind of are, can be visual too. So not even just verbal, but some visual symbolization, assuming that, and I've even seen this before with adults, assuming that any hand gestures are sort of gang related hand gestures, that's the automatic go-to, So stuff like that. And so we talk about having conversations that are really uncomfortable. They put people in uncomfortable places, but you have to have those conversations and kind of talk about those things to move forward. So if you're not understanding something or you say something, you gotta break it down right then and there. You gotta own it and you gotta talk about it. So I think, like I said, it's kind of different for each school. The themes are the same of racism, but I think in different schools it appears different ways. And I've had my own students say that to me when we've talked about other schools that are in Battle Creek, that it just looks different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my school, I go to Lloyd Norix, and we have like our school is majority black students, and other schools like around us, like Portage schools, are like, oh, your school is ghetto, that must suck, just because we have a lot of black people, and I'm just like, what is that? That doesn't make us ghetto, or like our school is rough. People like all the schools around us say stuff like that and say you must have a lot of fights and stuff like that. But it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that you've chimed in, so thank you for that. And from what you said, we can kind of start segueing into our next topic, which would be how racism manifests in neighboring school districts. So we know that every school district is different in many ways. So, everyone's got a different mascot, or some teams are better than others. Some academic teams are better than others. So can you guys all start by telling us some of the differences that you've seen in the surrounding districts compared to yours, such as like money, resources, things like that?
I can start if you want. Like
Sure.
my school, we're not like the richest school in the world, but like other schools around us tend to have a lot more money, and it's not as diverse around us. Like there are a lot, just mostly white people around us, and our schools are really diverse. Like county schools are really diverse, and I mean our sports teams are terrible, but I mean you just talked about sports teams, and I was just gonna say that because yeah, it's like that. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I go to a school that's like really diverse. I wouldn't say it's predominantly black, but it's like pretty equal. We have a bit of a mixture, but we're like the school of our city. So like we're like the school that most people in like from our city goes to. So all the schools around us can like they kind of say that we're like ghetto, or that we are like, they just always like put stuff on our school. And because the standards are different, because we have such a mixture of people, because the other schools like around us are predominantly white schools, so the socioeconomic and economic standards are like way different. They always want to put stuff on our school as in that we're like ghetto, or that we have a lot of fights or and stuff like that, and we're like, we're not. And especially like this past basketball season, it was like a lot of people from other districts just saying a whole bunch of negative stuff about our school that never been to our school, just specifically about just specifically the reason that we have so many different um people that go to our school, if you understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that from high school, I think that Bering Springs did a good job like showing diversity. But I do think that other schools did talk about us, but because majority of the black people did grow up in Benton Harbor, so I do think that, and we didn't, and I live in Benton Harbor, and I didn't go to Benton Harbor High School, so majority of the black people did go to Bering Springs, and they didn't live in Bering Springs. But for the people that do live in Berry Springs, like the white people that do, they did say that Ben Harbor was trash and all this stuff. They will talk crap about Ben Harbor and stuff. And I do think that other schools did have a lot of money, like other schools that are around us, they do have a lot of money and they tend to do better in academics. And I think they do prepare their students for the future. But I do think that Berrien does like a good job in showing diversity. Now, me going to Eastern, me being 10 minutes away from Michigan, U of M, and then being 20 minutes away from Concordia, and then me being like 45 minutes from Wayne State, I do think majority of the people do come from the Detroit area or like the Saginaw area. And Michigan, they're majority white or Asian. So I do think that Eastern is like a bigger version of Berrien. But I do think that Michigan, since it's being so big and is being a top 10 school, I do think they probably look down at Eastern because we're like right in the spot, like it's in the middle of Ann Arbor and also in the middle of Detroit. So like I think that they do look down at us and say like we have a lot of ghetto people and stuff like that, just for because they're so big and like they're a Big Ten school. So I do think they downgrade us, and they think at Eastern as being ghetto or Wayne State being as ghetto because we're so close to each other. So that's what I think.
Because I went to a non-public school, I think this is like the extent to which I kind of have mindset of how the public schools worked. Because there was one time I believe that me and a few friends, and Amber may have been one of them, I can't remember, but we went to a Lakeshore versus St. Joe homecoming game, and they were like sending off fireworks like every time the team had a touchdown or whatever, and skip to like a few years in the future, and Benton Harbor, which is pretty near to both St. Joe and Lakeshore High School, is closing down because they can't stay open anymore. And they're all in the same kind of, it doesn't take long to go from one school to the other. And just the vast difference of like, you can afford to send out fireworks every time your team gets a touchdown, but the school can't even afford to stay open anymore. Like that kind of shows the disparity in the area.
Yeah.
My school is kind of looked down by the other schools surrounding us, mostly just because our school isn't as nice looking, or we don't have like nice fields, and we don't have good like sports teams, so people tend to just look at that and say like, oh, if you don't have good sports teams, you're a bad school. And like our school in football, we dropped out of our division because we couldn't win a game. And so if that shows you how bad our team is, basically, we are only playing our rival school, and we're not playing any other schools around us. I think we dropped out of the conference. That's what I meant.
Okay. Any last thoughts? All right. So still staying into that, how often do you see your school district versus other school districts getting media coverage? Is it good? Is it bad? Can you tell us what that seems like?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna bring the phone up closer. So I go to Battle Creek Central High School, and literally like we like within like Battle Creek, the city of Battle Creek, we often like see our sports like on the Inquirer and stuff like that. But it's mostly like I mostly see bad things on there about our school, and we are like the inner city school. So, and I just feel like when you look at like our school compared to like a Harper Creek, which is a predominantly white school, it's like the media kind of makes our school like, oh, they got into this fight instead of like, oh, they won this game. If you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? I do remember, because I did for a time go to Michigan Lutheran High School where Brianna graduated. I do remember that there was a time where when I was there, they definitely made sure to highlight all of the good things that were going on. But there was, I think, one time that something went really bad, and then they tried to cover it up quickly. I think it was that for some reason, one of the students from my graduating class, he wasn't going to graduate because I think he got into trouble with the law. And so it did make the papers, but then all of a sudden you couldn't find the article anymore. And so, of course, every school wants to save face, but at the same time, it wasn't fair that you're trying to take out everything that's bad about your school, but you're okay with allowing other school districts to continue to talk about the fight that happened in Ben Harbor on Friday and versus the championship that happened in St. Joe. So yeah.
I just wanted to say that I think that young people, students, they really need to kind of turn to the adults that are in the community, in the school, in other school districts, and kind of tell them that they have a part in this too. They have to own the narrative that they're creating. So I think, students are sometimes torn because it is, just perpetuated. And so they're going to kind of stick to the storyline, and the adults really have a responsibility. The adults are the ones that really have to be digging deeper to help support students and young people look at these things from an open perspective and have these conversations. And that takes having a tough look at ourselves as adults, and how are we saying things and how are we setting things up. And so I think that it's a great opportunity, and young people should feel empowered to turn to those adults and say, what are you doing? How are you changing things?
Yeah, Jen, I definitely agree, because at the end of the day, you have to remember who are the ones that are actually making the decisions for these school districts. It's not the children, it's obviously the adults. And so it's not fair to them that um, every time they go to another school, they're the ones that have to sit here and have to worry about someone talking bad about their school, when the adults can also take part in saying, what can we do for you? What can we do to help you succeed? And also to stand up to those who are trying to say bad about their school district, such as like having different articles in the press and like what they're trying to share versus what they're not trying to share. So yeah. What about universities? Kyra, Megan? Anyone?
Well, I mean, I go to Western, but I know like lately Michigan State has had a lot of hate. And it's some of the stuff's coming to light about like their media coverage. I know that a lot of white students have been, um, I don't know if they've gotten in trouble because I don't honestly know the extent to what has happened, but I know like the storylines about white students like putting nooses and stuff on other black people's doors and all this stuff. And I know these are reoccurring problems that are happening at state, and that the media is finally starting to cover that and bring those issues to light. And so hopefully that like funding can get cut in a sense, or issues like this can get fixed where there is academic consequences. You get kicked out because if you are threatening other students, or you were just like you were that ignorant, if you have that much hate, you should not be on a university campus where diversity be like promoted. So I'm just I think media coverage for like other universities and stuff is definitely coming more to light.
Yeah.
That makes sense at all.
I don't really get. I don't really at Eastern. We don't really. I never had that problem at Eastern. I don't think we haven't had. I haven't had a racial experience or hear from Eastern like have another racist experience. I do think we have our own groups. Like you have the NAACP. You have different types of groups. So I don't think that I haven't had any problem yet with any media races or anything. I do think that our school I do think we yeah, I just do think we do a good job in showing that. So I haven't had anything like that experience yet. So
Okay. Um, Another thing I have been seeing in the media is there are certain high school students that are taking to social media and they are saying racist things, and then of course they're coming um, it's coming around, it's being shared, and then people are seeking out what high schools, what universities they're attending, and telling them so that they can be more or less punished for their actions. And so, is that something that you guys tend to see vary from district to district as well? That certain students will be like on social media and flaunting or saying things that they really shouldn't, and then it kind of circles around and all that.
Yeah, that happened last year at my school. There was a clip of a kid from Portage that said like racial slurs and was blackface, and everyone at like it was circling all around the district. People were gonna like jump him, and people were really upset about it. And then he made like a really like heartless apology, like he didn't really mean it. And then there was more clips of him circulating after that, and it was just a mess. And
Mhm.
everyone was just like figuring out where he lived, where he went, and his information and stuff like that. It was madness.
um it was this kid, he was in high school. He is in high school and we were on the same track team together. I didn't think that he was how he is, but he took a picture and he had like dirt on his hands. And he posted on Snapchat and said, "Since my hands are black, am I allowed to say the N word now?" And then everybody was posting it on Facebook and stuff, and other people were seeing it from different schools. I saw, and I don't go to Berrien anymore, and he was like, "How's this racist?" The thing was that you asked a racist question and you knew the answer to it, so you asked something that you should never even ask. And then he was like threatening people to fight him, and he wanted everybody to come fight him. Like he just started something that was immature. And that I feel like as a senior, you're going into college, you're about to become an adult. You should not act like this. Like you shouldn't say comments like this that can potentially ruin your future career. Because I knew he was trying to go to a school for cross country, so I just think that that was very inappropriate of him to say that. And for you to do that while we're not at school, and majority of your schools has black people in it. I think that was very disrespectful of him. And like other people from other schools were seeing it. They had like 1,000 comments on it. So I just think that it was he's said something that he should never even said. I think he knew what he was doing. So I just feel like that was really immature of him. And it kind of made everyone look down at Berrien and think that Berrien's just full of racist people. And I just think he started it, and now everyone's just saying like, "What can you do?" Because we're not in school, And then having people and then saying, "Come fight me. Here's my address." Blah blah blah. Like that was just immature. Like that wasn't called for.
I'm thankful that like we do have social media now to like kind of bring light to more situations like this, because people need to learn that there are consequences for your actions and for your words. And so I am thankful, like in a sense, that people are starting to become and get like more held accountable, because these things are not okay and they should not be accepted.
Yes, exactly. Social media can be your best friend and your worst enemy. And so that's why of course, it's always, you have to be mindful about what you say and do on the internet, but at the same time, it has a way of bringing out someone's true colors. It literally is just a viable way for us to just be able to point out and say, hey, that's not okay to say. And there are consequences to your actions. And if you don't think that there are, well, here you go. So kind of also segueing into that, Jen talked about how teachers and faculty and adults have to kind of take responsibility for the things that kind of go on in the school district. What do you think that we can do as students to also help kind of take control of when we're going to different sporting events, when we're going to different academic events? What do you think that we can do to kind of help combat that?
I think the main thing is to just think before you speak. Like, just think, is this gonna hurt somebody's feelings? I think that if you know it's wrong, then you shouldn't even say it. If you know it's gonna hurt somebody, just keep it to yourself. And it doesn't even have to be towards a race. It can also be towards to a person that has a disability or something. Like, if you know it's wrong, just don't even say it at all, because it's just not right. So
It's like a kind of difficult thing, I think, to some regard, because the best apology is like if someone actually changes and you can tell that that person took what you said to heart and like sincerely tried to change their attitude. But then another part of it, I think, is people, I feel like an old person saying this. I swear I am not like an 80-year-old person, but like I think part of what social media does is it makes people think that they have to voice like the first thing that comes to their head, like automatically, and they just need to put it out there. And everyone needs to know the first thing that came to your mind when this thing happened, or so and so said this, or whatever. And like, people need to realize there's kind of a filter in your head for a reason. And like, if you wouldn't say it to a stranger, you probably shouldn't post it online. Like, there are some things that I'll joke about with friends that like would be extremely awkward to say to a stranger, or extremely like disrespectful to a stranger, but that's because we have that closeness. And I think people need to realize, like, when you put things online, or if you're at a sporting event with people you don't know, you don't have that closeness with every person you meet. So you need to respect where the boundaries are with strangers. And I think that's kind of a thing that people miss a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Any last thoughts, guys? Layla, Jenna, Cameron? Nope.
So like kind of piggyback on what the last girl said. So how do you feel about like if I okay, so I'm black, but if I was to be like a white person, this is not that's not really on topic, but I was like a white person, is it like because sometimes they say things in their friend group that are still inappropriate, and then when they get into normal society and they say it the inappropriate thing, then they're like, oh my gosh, like I say it when I'm with my friends, it's not a big deal type of thing. So is that, can you kind of explain that in that sense? Did that make sense? I don't know.
Are you trying to say that that even though when you say things in your friend group it's okay, and then you go out into public, like to probably, let's see, when you're with your friends, you can kind of say and do things that you want because you're in a comfortability phase, but it's not really also always appropriate to say, because even though it's with your friends, it still wasn't okay. Is that kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay. I think kind of, yeah, what it is that a lot of times, um, amongst peers, we like to talk about stereotypes and joke about them because we are amongst our peers and we know that we're not being harmful with our jokes. And so I think kind of like that is a difficult question to answer because it is a point of like everyone has to remember, oh, it's just a joke, or oh, it's just this, or it's just that. But not everybody understands that you're joking. And so I guess kind of, yeah, mostly it should just be a point of like, if you're not sure if you should say it, then you probably shouldn't say it at all. Or even if you think that it's okay to say, just don't. And it's also to, I guess, just kind of look and understand that as even though we kind of joke with each other, that our jokes can still be hurtful towards other people. And so maybe we probably shouldn't always joke. So yeah, you see, it's a very fine line because we all do it. And so it's very hard to say whether it's right or wrong. Because at the same time, you have to take into account someone's feelings and their situation and their past as well. So yeah, that's a very difficult question to ask because it's not a very concise answer unless anyone else wants to give a shot at trying to answer it.
I think I think like it depends on your closeness with the person. I feel like when you meet people and you become close to them, you kind of understand where the line in their humor is, and you can kind of tell what's okay with them, what's not okay. And if you push the line, that's not to say that you don't apologize and say that, hey, I pushed the line too far. I didn't realize that wouldn't be okay with you. I promise not to do it again. And there's a difference between acting a certain way with your friends and then getting called out for it with like people who aren't your friends, and then trying to use your friends as an excuse for treating a stranger like you would your friend in terms of closeness and understanding the joke. So it is a like difficult thing to define specifically, but I think that's when human interaction and relationships and social things come in, because like I can joke about what like certain things with my friend group that I would never say to a stranger, but that's because we've known each other for years and they're okay with it and they understand and they joke back. So I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt anyone.
I also think kind of piggybacking is that you have to realize where you are and who's around you, because there's a time and place for everything. And if you're in a place where those jokes shouldn't be appropriate or where someone can hear you make those jokes, then either you don't make the jokes or you make them to where people can't hear you. And if someone does hear you, you also have to remember that you don't know someone's boundaries. You don't know what's going to offend them. So when you're thinking, it's just a joke, they're thinking like, wow, that really, like I took that to the heart. That hurt my feelings. So you got to like, just know where you are and know who's around you.
Yes, definitely.
So I think that having empathy would be like good for these kind of situations where like if you're in the reverse situation and they were saying it to you, if you would be offended, you shouldn't say it. So like, yeah.
Right, definitely. All right. Well, I'm really loving these like replies, guys. So thank you. They're awesome. Let's go ahead and start jumping into let's see. Let's kind of start jumping into like stereotypes and how they affect faculty in schools. We kind of have touched on it a little bit, so let's just kind of like jump back into that. So this is always a very fun topic. Does anybody want to kind of give any like a couple of stereotypes that they normally hear on a regular basis?
I hear a lot about African Americans being really good at basketball and like running fast, being athletic. That's one of the main ones I hear, being like an athlete myself, playing basketball and running track. Um, it's really common, like after you win a race or something, you get like side looks, or you'll hear someone talking to their teammates that's Caucasian or another race that they only won because they're African American or something, or they have a good team because they're all black, or it's like it's really common to hear that. But then again, I know a bunch of African Americans that have no talent for sport, unathletic, but for some reason they just ignore those people and focus on the athletes and the stereotypes, which doesn't really make sense to me. But
So I know as an Asian, I get stereotyped for being smart and like good at everything. But so when I make mistakes in like homework and stuff, they're like, "Oh, you're Asian. Why would you make a mistake like that?" And I feel invalidated. Like just because I'm Asian doesn't mean I'm perfect at all things like that. And
Yeah, definitely.
So a stereotype that I hear a lot is that Black people are loud, ghetto, violent. We like Kool-Aid. Um, we like fried chicken, watermelon. Our favorite color is purple. Whole bunch of just random stereotypes. Some are true, like we like chicken, but like not everybody like chicken, not everybody like Kool-Aid, and like to just generalize us all, like I don't understand it.
I hear that too. Like, I don't like purple. That's not my favorite color. And I mean, I feel like I can be loud, I can be ghetto, I can be violent, all that stuff. But I feel like white people can be loud too. White people can be violent too. And I feel like that I also hear like black people, a lot of black people wear weave and fake hair and all that stuff. But now the natural hair is coming out. So a lot of black people have long hair and all that stuff. So I just feel like there's a lot of things that can go with white people too. Like just because one race wears weave doesn't mean white people wear weave. I've seen white people wear fake hair all the time. So I just feel like it goes hand in hand. It's just not just targeting one race. So I think it goes with every race.
I think that here's one, like, not all white people are racist. Just because some people might say racist things that are white doesn't mean that the whole race is just racist. Just because a couple people believes, it doesn't condemn the whole race. Like, you don't want them to condemn other races, so don't don't condemn them. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, Layla, I definitely understand what you're trying to say, because a lot of times when we are talking about race, it always comes up to say it's always a white person's fault, and that's not fair because you don't want everyone to generalize you. So, of course, you shouldn't generalize them. And it is more on an individual basis versus an entire group of people. So, thank you. I know that for me, uh, which I always find this hilarious and people find it too. Every time someone's like, "Oh, you're black, you must like chicken." I'm like, "Well, actually, yeah, I do. I very much like chicken. It's like my favorite food, but not every black person does like chicken. I know a lot of black people that are vegans or that vegetarians." And so I think also as like it does kind of end up being sometimes a coping mechanism so that when you hear someone say a stereotype, you try to embrace it a little bit in order to kind of deflect and not make it as kind of like as mean as it would sound. And so of course that's not always a good thing. But I know that that is how some people do view stereotypes, and when they are confronted with them, that's how they're able to react to it versus either getting upset or getting really angry. Um, have you heard any of your faculty members or teachers embracing stereotypes? Probably from like when they have discussions with you or discussions with another classmate, things like that. No, that's all right. That's good. It's really good. So since we oh, sorry.
I have had one incident. I was at work. I was at Power Motion, and we have to clean the equipment at the end. And I don't know, but I think I knew she was playing with me, but I didn't take it the right way. Like she said, "Oh, Kyra, you should mop because you have those slave jeans in you," something like that. And I was just like, "What are you trying to say?" And then she was just like, you guys are used to cleaning all this stuff. I was like, okay. I was about to go off. I was about to lose my mind, but I had to remember I was in front of kids and my boss was there. So I just said, I'm not gonna clean this, and I just had to walk out because my temper was about to just go crazy, and so I had to quit after that because I just felt a lot of races there, and at the time I was the only Black person that worked there, and so I do feel like a lot of the staff members did have a part into saying a lot of racist things there. And so I just think since they were all white people, that it was okay. And how my personality is, like, I like to have fun. Like, I like to take jokes and stuff, but I don't like to, that was kind of offensive. Like, that was very disrespectful. So after that, I was just, no. So that was like the only time I had like a staff or anybody like that do like a stereotype thing.
One that is absolutely absurd. Like, if someone did not correct her, she should have been taken straight to the office if the boss was there, and the boss should have stood up for you right then and there, because that is absolutely absurd and your feelings are 100% valid for how you feel. I would have never went back to that job.
I ended up quitting, and
Yeah.
she ended up getting fired after that. And she
Absolutely.
brought
I
me
don't
like a long apology about it, and I was like, "Girl, I don't even want to do this because I was about to literally like fight her, but I couldn't do that." So
no excuse for people to say things like that. Like, literally none.
That and like the specific situation you were in, because you said you were working with kids. What if a little Black girl or a little Black boy came into the school and heard her say that? Like, what if one of them were waiting for their parents, type of thing? Because I mean, I'm a person that generally tries to assume the best in people, but that's the thing that like should not be said ever, because that's like that could like traumatize a kid to hear, like to just expect like, oh, I'm supposed to be good at this because so and so happened in the past. Like, that's a really really bad thing.
yeah, it was. I didn't really know what to do at that time because I just saw red and I was really about to lose my mind. So I mean, it was all handled at the end, but I just cannot be around somebody that is like that. Like, if you take that as a joke, like, that's nothing to joke about. Like, that was just where you shouldn't never even said that. So if a kid did say that, then I mean, if a kid did hear that, then they're going into the wrong path. So I just think that it also has a fact that how their parents see things. So if a kid hears that from their parent, they're probably going to grow up thinking the same thing. That's probably how she felt. But I just think that was out of line. Like, that was just disrespectful.
You're right. It definitely wasn't called for. It wasn't asked for, and it wasn't in any way, shape, or form okay to say. Um, Another thing that like kind of that gets to the point where it does hurt even more is how stereotypes, not only do they affect like how we feel, but then they also like have consequences for who we are and how that is looked upon on the world. So a stereotype for Black women tends to be, oh, you have nappy hair, which they're referring to our natural hair. And so a lot of times in the media, we have seen lately that things like protective styles are being worn by people that aren't of color. And then so they're being praised for it. But then we also see that I think it was about 2-3 years ago, 2 girls who were wearing box braids were kicked out of school because of their hair, or the young man who was in sports and his coach started cutting his dreadlocks. And so hmm?
I get that too.
It was the
Because
wrestling.
at Easter now, I at Berrien, I could do whatever I want with my hair because that's how me and my coach were. So she knew how I was, and so at Easter, if I have weave or like if my track is showing or something, my coach is like, you can't wear weave anymore. You can't have your track showing, all this stuff, like, because she was discriminating me. She was saying that I can't wear my hair a certain way. So I was just like, I can have my hair how I want to have my hair, like it's my body. So yeah, I just think that she was just discriminating me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not fair for other people to have their hair how they want, but I can't have my hair how I want because I'm on a cheer team and I have to look the same. Maybe I don't want to look the same. So that's all.
Yeah, it even jumps into a perspective of when you're starting to look for a position. Um, I know that lots of places, they would prefer that you have your hair straightened instead of having it natural or in these different protective styles. And so it hurts even more when you're trying so hard to achieve something and the first thing that someone is looking at is how you look. Um, and so with that, how do you guys think that we can start changing how people think about stereotypes and confronting them on what they say about it and turning it into something positive?
Okay, so the thing about can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing about the box braids and the girls like 2 years ago, that kind of goes with culture appropriation and how like in the society that we live in, how one person can do something and it's accepted, but somebody that's a minority does something and it's discriminated against. So we can help that by educating our people and being like, well, this is my culture. This is how I like to dress. This is how
Oh, you're cutting out a little
limit
bit.
that disrespect. Um, I'm sorry. Can
You're
you hear
fine.
me right now? Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
For you to try to mimic that is like really disrespectful and like letting people know that that's not acceptable.
Going off of what she said, I totally agree that like educating people is so important. Not being afraid to stand up and say like, hey, that's not cool, that's not all right. That's like super important and it needs to be done.
Yeah, I think it's very important that like we've mentioned before, is that we have to open up these areas for conversation. And so when people want to make those types of jokes or those types of comments, it's important for us to just say, hey, this is actually honestly how I feel about it. And do you have like any ideas or understanding of why this is the way it is? So such as with hair. Do you understand why I have to straighten my hair. Do you understand that African Americans tend to have different varieties of hair, and how that can be looked upon negatively? And so it's just the point of opening up these conversations, and like I said, making it a teachable moment and not a belittling moment. Does anyone want to add to that? Jen, did you get back in?
I did. I'm back in. Thank you.
Okay.
Like if you hear someone like say something like that, instead of, yeah, like you were saying, instead of like jumping on them and turning it into like a conflict or a negative moment or like a fight or like anything like that, just simply just like be mature and try to talk to them about like why that's not okay and why they shouldn't go somewhere else and say that, because like it's just not okay. Can't just judge people and then make comments on what you've heard about them or just what you've seen about them and you don't even know that person.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to throw something out there. And I obviously teach older students. I teach at the high school level. But my thinking is if these kind of conversations can start to happen in classrooms at like pre-K, kindergarten, elementary level with students and with adults in classrooms, I just wonder what that would look like and what kind of change that would happen. I think that by the time a lot of students get to middle school and especially high school, they are exposed to more conversations like this, but by that time, a lot of things have been set into play already, and a lot of things have already been constructed. And so you're now trying to deconstruct them when, you know, potentially having those conversations as part of curriculum in early elementary school and pre-K would be a really good step to addressing things a lot sooner and breaking down those obstacles and those uncomfortable conversations and those stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of things start when you're young and they start in the home. And so unfortunately there has to a lot of times be some deconstruction going on with these conversations. It is also very encouraging to know though that it is happening, that it's not just a thought process, it is actually happening. There are people, as I definitely have seen it too when I left my small hometown and I moved to Kalamazoo for the first time. I started to see a lot of kids who were the same age as me, who grew up in the same in the same towns as me, and they thought a certain way, and then that changed. And so it's a point of being open to the deconstruction and to be open to the understanding, so that so that we can actually have these conversations and they don't turn very sour. So that's also like just something that's really positive about just the power of conversation.
This, I think to some degree when it comes to kind of educating kids and that sort of stuff goes along with it, which is the idea that I think now now it's happening more, and it has happened in the past, where there are more positive influences that encourage kids that they can be more than that sort of thing. Like there was one guy who did a speaking engagement thing, and he talked about how his younger daughter watched Doc McStuffins all the time, and how she just assumed that all doctors had to be Black women, because she would watch the show that had a Black girl becoming a doctor, and then in the commercials they would show real Black women who were doctors. So in her head she's like, yeah, Black women are doctors, it's just part of how the world works. And there are instances in the past of like, I'm kind of into sci-fi, so like when Star Trek happened and there was a woman who played a lieutenant in there, and she actually encouraged women and people of color to join the space agency, and just things like that that kind of encourage people. One, they break stereotypes in the minds of people, but they do it in a way to where it's accessible to kids, and where it's also not just hitting people over the head with a book being like, get these ideas out of your head, which I don't feel like helps them more. They just kind of learn more by seeing people break those stereotypes. And it also encourages people who may have heard those stereotypes from other people, like, no, I can be a doctor, or no, I can be involved in the space agency. Like, it breaks the stereotypes down for kids in a level they understand before it can be ingrained in them to think that sort of way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Awesome. Okay. So do we have any last final comments, thoughts on this part of the topic? All right, so now we're going to get into our very final conversation for our summit. We're going to talk about the difference in equality and equity in schools and extracurricular activities. And so, you know, this conversation can be very difficult because people don't always understand the difference between equality and equity. And so just for everybody, I'm going to just read off the actual definition. And so the definition of equality is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. And then the definition for equity is the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. I really wanted to try to post the picture where I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It's the three children who are looking at a baseball game. And so on one side, one is standing on top of a box and they're able to see over, while on the second one is just looking exactly at the fence, and the third one is as well. Or that the first child is on two boxes and they can see clearly, the second child's on one box and can kind of see, and then on the third box, the third child can't see at all. Versus equity, which is there is a chain link fence where you can see directly through and everyone is able to view it. So yeah, I tried to be able to screen share it, but it's not working, unfortunately. But so now that I've told you what the definitions are for equality and equity, what does that mean to you in schools? So do you see a difference in equality and equity when it comes to your schoolwork, when it comes to teams and how much they play? Do you notice that there's any favorites, things like that? I know that at least when it came to me, when I was younger, I had a very difficult time with math. I was very good at all of my other subjects and I got A's and B's, but I always managed to always get a C in math. And so instead of my teacher saying, oh, well, I think you need more help, they would always be like, well, all the other students are doing fine and you're all getting the same amount of work. So what exactly is your problem and why can't you handle it? Has anyone had a situation like that before?
I did. I was really bad in math. I was always behind and I was really bad in reading. So they would just always look at me like, you don't really need help. Well, how come everybody else is getting it? It's not your fault. Why are you complaining? You probably just don't try. Stuff like that. But I literally legit did not understand it. And then come and find out that I had like dyslexia problems. And so I'm like looking at them like, you thought I didn't need help, but I did need help. And so then they kind of felt bad that they kind of like put me out on the spot and made me feel bad, like made me feel like I was dumb. Instead, when I had an actual problem, like I actually couldn't understand, like everything was just spinning in my head. So after that, I was able to like get help that I needed, and now I'm good in math and I'm pretty good in reading. So I think that probably was like an eye opener for them. Like we can't just put that person down just because they don't understand it.
Exactly. That was the difference for equality and equity with me. So it was equal the fact that I was getting all the same work as everyone else. But then I remember when I transferred to Berrien Springs, I don't know if you and Layla were around for the chemistry teacher, Mrs. Hughes. Do you
I had
remember
Miss
her?
Hughes. I had
Yes.
her.
Well, I know everyone had different like views on her, but it made so much of a difference at the fact that when I was taking regular chemistry, I wasn't doing well at all. And I told her, it's like, I'm not doing well. I think I'm going to switch over to your essentials class because that was the step lower than chemistry. And so instead of her saying, okay, that's fine, she's like, no, you need help. You, as soon as you finish your lunch, come see me in my classroom and I'm going to help you with your homework before the class starts. And it made a dramatic difference. It made a difference at the fact that I know that instead of her just saying, well, okay, yeah, I can just jump you down one, um, a lot of her students, when they needed the help, she would sit there during her lunch and she would work with us so that we were all able to benefit and get a better understanding of chemistry. And so I will always appreciate her for that.
I did the same thing with her. I did not focus in her class at all. I probably went to sleep half our class and then just stayed in the afternoon, like after class was over, to understand it, because I did not understand her. I thought she was talking too fast. I thought she was all over the place when we were in the classroom. But when we would when I would do one-on-one with her, like at the end of the day, I got an A in her class, and I was like, I could understand it a lot better when it was just one-on-one, because she was all over the place. So I just think I didn't even pay attention in her class. So I think she did a good job at that.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share their ideas or their thoughts? I mean, it doesn't have to be you. It could even be a time that you've seen it happen or you've heard of someone having a situation like that.
Um, I think some teachers get really caught up in all their work and like because they get overwhelmed sometimes and they're giving their classes like the same work, same instruction, but they're kind of blocking out the part where they're giving students uh, opportunities to go like one-on-one or like get their grade after class. I think some teachers don't do it on purpose, but there's times when teachers um, have a hard time creating opportunities for students that are struggling.
Mm-hmm. That's true, because I mean, it is literally one student, I mean, one teacher per 20, 30 students, and so you can only stretch yourself so far. Jen, actually, do you want to comment on anything about that?
Yeah, and I can totally understand that it's difficult to try to meet kids where their needs are. But I think that if teachers could kind of step back and look at, we focus a lot on academics. Academics are obviously super important, but our kids are people too. And so a lot of the stuff that they have that is, I think, more important sometimes in academics is not always brought out to light, is not always kind of focused on. So I think, and again, this goes back to the adults. What is adult practice? What are adults doing? To meet kids where they're at, raise them up to the expectations that the teachers have, but also that the students have of themselves. That they need to know that others share and support that. So it is hard, and I just think sometimes we just focus so much on academics, and the academics come with it. But if, as an adult, you are supporting a student and you're kind of focusing on what that student has within them, that's just as important too. And I think a lot of times that gets lost. And again, that's a systems issue. That's a structural issue with our education system. And a lot of teachers feel penned in about that. And that's where it's important in your classrooms to ask your teachers to give you the opportunity to have a voice about your own education. What could be different? what do you need to be different? Because, you know, we're told from the powers that be how things need to be, but it's not our education. I'm just, or teachers are just trying to kind of create those parameters, but at the end of the day, it's your education. And so teachers really need to create a space in their classrooms where you guys feel like you can talk about that and tell them, this is what we need, this is what we want. And sometimes it doesn't always need to be, you know, shoving the academics down your throat. It's other things.
Yeah, exactly. I also know that there have been plenty of times that my teachers have they've been there for me even for a sense of I wasn't having a good day. I was worried about things, and so they were able to just provide me with a space and say, you know, it's okay. It's okay that you're not all right today. And so when you are okay, we can resume with what you need to do. And so it is very important, like what you said, that adults do play a very important role in this, because it is a sense of we have to all work together to achieve the goal. And so if I can't exactly always tell you what I need, you can't always be able to help me with what I need as well. And so working together, you can actually achieve that goal very well. So yes, thank you. Go ahead.
I think that in high school, my counselor was like a huge influence on me. Like I will have a lot of home issues and stuff, and I'll take my anger out on teachers or my peers or something. And my counselor would be like, "Okay, Kyra, just come in and just don't even go back to class or something like that." Or I'll go to my old cheer coach classroom and just sit in her room the whole day because she knew what I was going through. And then my senior year, I worked at Blossomland, a special education school, and the teacher I had, she was a huge influence on me. Like she knew what I would tell her. I would tell her what I would go through, and she would just help me out and be there for me. So she was all three of those people like helped me get myself together, and like they just calmed me down because I had a lot of stuff going on when I was in high school. So I think that was a big help because I feel like if I didn't have those people, I probably would have been suspended a lot more than what I have been suspended, or I would have been in detention a lot. So I think I'm thankful that they were in my life. So
Awesome, thank you.
Um, this is probably because I did go to a school that didn't have a large population of people who weren't white. So a majority of what I saw was just kind of like based on sex and that sort of stuff. Like the girls' PE team is going to do gymnastics and badminton and that sort of stuff, and the boys' like PE team is going to do basketball or football and stuff like that. Which I mean, obviously there are physical differences and that sort of stuff. But I did have quite a few teachers who were like, they could tell. Like one of my teachers I had right before PE class, she could tell if I felt bad, and she'd be like, "You're not doing PE today. Sit on the stage and read a book. Like, do this. I'm not gonna force you to do this." Because there are teachers who genuinely want what's best for their students, and like that teacher, by the end of my year with her, she could tell like just from looking at me walking into her math class, she's like, I'm going to write you a note. Instead of going to PE class, you can write for your journalism course, or you can take pictures of students around the school, but I'm not going to make you do PE right now. Like just things like that. So there are like teachers who do pay attention to that sort of stuff and will go out of their way to try and make sure you're in an environment where you can learn better, or where you can like be in the best mind state. Like I had one teacher who would like every single day she would write a permission slip for me to sit in her office and work on stuff for journalism, because she knew I didn't feel comfortable in the other study hall, not because people were rude or anything, just because there were so many people. So like teachers do go out of their way to make things better to the extent that they can, but that being said, I do think the higher ups kind of limit what they can do.
Yeah, so I think it's important
for all teachers to just make sure that their students are in a comfortable and safe environment. I feel like most of the teachers I've had are, they've always done that. They go out their way for their students, make sure that we're comfortable, and I feel like that's like vital. Just like because you never know, like if somebody even has a safe, comfortable environment at home, what that can do, like how that can benefit somebody. So yeah.
Amber, you're muted, so if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I didn't realize that. Thank you. So I was saying that along with that, have you noticed anything like including with sports teams? I know that not everyone gets a chance to play in the game, but have you noticed there's a time that you had that one player that never got a chance to play, or that person that was always in the very starting line? And like, how did that, or even if you were that person, how did that make you feel?
Um, for me, I feel like for like our basketball games, I see it all the time. Like at the girls' games or like the boys' games, there be like people that's on the bench and they'll just stay on the bench the whole time and never get in. And for me, I kind of feel sad because it's like, like they're on the team but they never get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to me.
For
Yeah.
me, coming from a cheer background, I think that since I did competitive cheer, it was 3 rounds, and if you wasn't in a round, you kind of was looking at like you were just there. It was a lot of girls on our team. I have been in all 3 rounds. If you're in all 3 rounds, that means you're in like an important factor to the team. And so if you were in no rounds and you couldn't bring anything to the team, they were kind of just like looking at you like you just kind of following us around. Like there's really no point of you being on the team. So
Mm-hmm.
I have went through that a lot of times. So I think for me, as I am, I just try to help them and motivate them. And I just want to like know that it's going to be okay. Like, you can eventually get it around. Like, don't give up or anything. I just want to keep them pushing and like not actually try to start not wanting to quit. I want them to stay on the team and try to work better. I try to do this with Layla, but sometimes she doesn't want to do it. But I try to help her, because I want everybody on my team to be to their full potential. And even on track, like I try to push my friends to keep going. Like if we like didn't have our best time, like, and you're just in like the sixth or like the seventh heat, like you like nothing. Like if you was in like the first or like the third heat, that means you're really fast. You with all the fast people. So I just try to help everybody out, like so they can be better than how they are, so they don't like start to give up. Because I feel like some coaches look at their favorites, like look at the people that are the best. So I want to like help them so they can be noticed and like show the coaches that they are actually doing something to help themselves, like put something and bring something to the team.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go on. Sorry, please.
So that person was kind of like me because I played soccer for my high school, and that last year. Well, this canceled year is my second year, and I played a decent amount, but our coach left, so we had a new coach, and I he basically played me the bare minimum to like not look like a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also a really toxic team where we had no real like leadership, and people that were like supposed to be leaders were just rude and just made fun of other people. And our coach was like just feeding the fire because he was just like them, and he had such favorites, and his son was on the team, and of course he played the whole game, every game. And it was just frustrating because I'd worked my butt off more than any of the starters, and I think that I wasn't like, I mean, maybe I'm not as good as them, but I think I deserve to play more than I did. and then people still think that it's like my effort or like that I'm not putting in the work, and they're like, just keep doing it. I'm like, what do you think I've been doing? And it's just got to the point where it wasn't making me happy, and I was just tired of it. I just quit the team, and I just told the coach to suck it, and then I left. And I'm fine now. I still play club soccer because that's actually a good team where people aren't jerks to each other, and I have a real coach. But I'm not doing high school soccer anymore. It's ironic because I'm wearing a Norwich soccer shirt right now. But I'm done.
There we go. Or no, can you are you able to turn on your mic?
Me?
Yes. Okay, there we go. Awesome.
Yeah, I can turn my mic, just not my video now.
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Are we still on the coaches subject?
Yes.
Okay, like for me, like, cause I don't really do. I do cheer and track and stuff, but like from my point of view, I feel like from teams, like from watching other teams, like the basketball team and stuff like that, I feel like coaches play, and sometimes my coaches too. Like I feel like they do play a big role in like athletes having like confidence and stuff, because lots of times like the girls, like I'm sorry, I didn't see her name, but I just heard her talking about I think it was S.H.A.R.E. I think I heard her talking about how like she would help people out like that wasn't really that good on the team. And I feel like coaches do play like a favoritism role for kids who aren't really that good, and like when they see somebody struggling, they don't really try to help. It's kind of just like okay, you're not good, so I'm just put you to the side.
Yeah, definitely. I know that when me and Brianna, we used to play volleyball together a long time ago, I think we were benched a lot.
We weren't good.
Yeah, we weren't good. And but then when I started playing sports in high school, I noticed that like when the coach would notice, like, okay, I see that you're just not really getting something, let me work with you. And so that just really made the difference in not only my improvement as an athlete, but it also really helped my self-esteem as well, because you keep going through sports and if you're never playing, you're just kind of wondering like, well, why did you even bother letting me on the team? I know that even like when I did cheer, coach was really great for that too, because I wasn't getting, I think, round offs, and she just kept letting me work on them. And then I started to feel more like I was getting it and that I was able to actually be a good cheerleader, and not that I just magically got onto the team.
This might have to do with kind of the leadership idea that was mentioned before, which was our graduating class. Like I said, it was a private school, so like our entire graduating class was like 20 people maybe. And even though like all of us weren't best friends, it wasn't like some sitcom high school thing or anything, but we all kind of had this mutual understanding of like, well, the year before us helped us, so we're going to help the years younger than us. Because our graduating class, like I think half of the varsity football team was made up of people specifically from our year. When you take into account it was 20 kids in our graduating class, that's quite a bit. And then we had 4 of like 8 cheerleaders that were all seniors and that sort of thing. So we kind of had the idea of, all right, we're going to kind of get the other kids in place, have them understand kind of what we're doing in that whole aspect. And then I actually found out recently, because what was my high school that I graduated from was their rival. They've actually been kind of bad sportsmanship behavior, like taunting the teams and that sort of stuff, without the coaches knowing and that sort of thing. Because a coworker, one of their relatives, is on the opposing team, and like I got really, really frustrated in general when I heard that, because even if we weren't good at the sport, it always made me happy that we were sportsmanlike to them, like to the point where like no other team would say anything negative about us, like in terms of how we act in their school and that sort of stuff, because we were pretty reasonable with everyone. But the fact that it kind of changed like that, and it was like it hasn't been that many years, so the fact that it changed that quickly and just the entire environment around sports changed so quickly just based on who was there and who was in charge of the teams, like it made me realize how much I kind of took that for granted while I was there, like that we were able to act that way and have good leadership that taught us how to do it.
I think that um when I when I first started cheer, we did good, but we didn't do the best. And so my 10th grade year, I think we had a good leadership. Like we had a good people that were like leading the team, and they kind of my grade. It was only 4 girls from my grade that was in on the cheer team with me, and so I think we kind of looked at them was like, that's how we want to be when we become seniors. And then my junior year, we went down. We did awful. It was probably our worst year I ever been on. And then my senior year, we was just like, we want to do better than how we did in the past years. And so I think everybody, not even on the cheer team, I think the football team, the soccer team, I feel like everybody that was in my grade, we just had this motivation to like help the people younger than us. So I think we had like a good leadership. Like I feel like everybody in my grade just knew how to help everybody else out. I think that we just made a huge impact on the grades below us. And I feel like my grade I feel like my year when I did cheer, I think that we did really good. Like we set the bar so high and made the next grade when I left do better than ever. Like they went to state and everything. And the football team, after my grade left, we did so good. After my grade left, they were winning. They won all conference, all that stuff. So I just think that my grade was like a huge impact on how all the other grades look at it. And that I think it kind of gave the other teams or the other grades lower than my grade to want to do better. And like I think it kind of pushed them because I think my grade had a big influence on them. So
Yeah, I kind of realized from my experiences in high school sports how much a coach really means to a team and like what like your chemistry does because the year before, I mean, I was a freshman, so like I got the usual freshman like stuff, and I was fine with it. And but we were winning, so like no one really cared about all the little stuff that was going behind the scenes. But then next year, when I was a sophomore, it really got blown up because everyone we were starting losing and people were upset and just got worse. And our coach, yeah, he didn't really do anything, and he was just mainly part of the problem. And it really affected my self-esteem because I was just really upset about it, and I was really looking forward to my sophomore season because I was not I would be the oldest, like one of the oldest on the team because I was on JV, and I was looking forward to like proving myself and starting, and I had really high goals and high hopes for the season, and then it all just got squashed, and like I think it was the worst when I was really excited that year because my cousin became a freshman and we were going to play his team, and I didn't play at all that game, and he played way more than me, and that really sucked. But yeah, I just realized how much like leadership is important to a team's success, and how, that's in sports at my school. You kind of notice like which teams are doing the best basically because of the atmosphere they have. And I joined the swim team that year, and it was an amazing atmosphere. Everyone was so supportive and great with each other. And I was like, man, why couldn't it have been like this with other stuff? Why is it just that? Yeah.
Amber, you're muted.
I just realized it. Sorry. My dog has been barking, and so I've been muting more than than what I was from the beginning. So I know we did kind of talk about it here and there. So just to kind of wrap up, I guess like most of you have kind of just said that what really helps um, what helps make the situation better is just to have involvement from everyone, whether it's your team, your coaches, other faculty all together. That's what kind of just it helps things turn from just being, well, everyone is on the team versus everyone is a part of the team. Does anyone kind of want to add to that or have any final comments or stories?
Um, yeah, I guess I won't like say it, I won't like stretch it out, but I agree that everyone should play a part in it and make sure like it's not just like everyone else and like the starters and like the main people and then just the rest. Because I think a lot of teams tend to just have their core and then just throw everyone to the side like they're not even on the team. Like it's like I question myself. I was like, why am I even playing? Why am I putting in the time to just sit on a bench and just feel like crap the whole time? Because like it really sucks just watching people come in and then come out before you, and then you just ask your coach, and then he's like, "I'll tell you when you come in," and then they just tell you that it's like your problem and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just ridiculous.
That
And
in oh, sorry.
oh, you're good.
That in like high school in general should be like it's not an NFL or an NBA game. Like the entire point of having sports in school is so people can stay fit and so people can kind of learn how to interact with the team. So like you shouldn't be just focusing on the scoreboard, especially in high school. That should be when you're like least focusing on the scoreboard when it's like a high school game, because it's not like everything is riding on this one thing. It should be this is a chance for you to learn how to interact with people more and how to work as a team and how to like take life lessons out of this.
I think what got on my nerves the most about it is that it wasn't that we were like winning with these teams. We were getting crushed. And I was like, why don't you change up the lineup? Because something ain't working. And he just didn't, because he used to be a coach for a club team. And a lot of those freshman kids were on his team. He just loved them all. And he would only play those kids. And I was just really annoyed because these kids, I mean, they might not be, I mean, I played for not a very good club team my whole life, so I wasn't had much experience with like higher level teams. But I mean, I was bigger than they were like small and like skinny, and you could just push them around easily. And the fact that those kids were getting more time than me just got under my skin. They would get really cocky and talk stuff, and I'm like, don't talk to me, bro. It's so
I
toxic.
do think that it does rely on the scoreboard only because it's a lot of people out here that don't have nothing else. Like they want to move on. Some people are first generation kids to go to college, and their only way into college is or through a sport so they can get a full scholarship. I do think that it does play a role because if you don't do good in a game or something, then a college coach should be like, oh, we don't want you. Like I do think it does play a role in like on some kids' lives. Like I do understand you are there to be on the team and you're there to interact with other people, but I do think that it plays a fact in that kids need the money to be able to go to school because their parents can't support them on their own, and their only way is to go to a college. But if they don't go to college, they're going to end up on the street or end up in jail or something. So I do think that it does play a role into how um some kids futures are, because some kids don't have what everybody else has.
That's just,
Oh, I'll wait.
oh, my bad.
You wait.
I was just gonna say that I mean our school. This is the one rare instance that we have the Kalamazoo Promise. I don't know if you guys know about it, but it's like
free tuition because like some millionaires put in like a bunch of money for the district. And but also I understand that the score, like I would totally understand if it was different like for varsity. Like I'm not saying that it's like that, but our team was JV, so that's what really got on my nerves. But I agree. Just like,
I also agree. And I kind of feel like it's generational because I know like being not even just being at an inner city school, because I'm African American, so being around like just the people like I know and people in my community and even my own family, like I feel like people feel like their only way out of like after like the only way living after high school is either you're playing a sport in college or like you're just like out here like in the streets or something. And I feel like that also has something to do with our school systems and like the community around us, because I feel like if you I feel like they push that like, oh, you're never gonna be smart enough to be a doctor, but you can be good at basketball or you can be good at football. You see what I'm saying? Like I feel like that has like something to do with communities and also the schools.
Yes, definitely. That kind of even goes back into those stereotypes and how the more you hear them, the more that's all you believe. So if you are really good at sports, if you are really good at basketball, some people will tend to put more pressure on you to be the best that you can be, because that is going to be your only way out, not knowing that even though sometimes it can be challenging, there are resources for you and you can do what you want to do, and your whole life does not have to evolve around just this one thing that people think that you are good at and that you should have to do. So thank you for that. Okay, so do we have any last thoughts, comments?
I just kind of want to just talk about like next steps. So each and every one of us, adults too, but focusing on young people, like think in your mind, what is the next step that I'm going to do to keep this conversation going? What situation might I come across that I am going to change the narrative or change the conversation or change the outcome? Because a lot of times we get stuck in having conversations and then it just stays where it was and it doesn't go out and it doesn't keep moving and it doesn't keep making change. So I would like all of us to think about what is going to be one next step we're going to do, because if we just stay at a stalemate where it doesn't change, these conversations are great, but they're never going to keep moving. So we have to be really conscious in what our actions are and what we're going to do next. Even if it seems like the smallest thing is still movement forward.
Yes, thank you, Jen. I was actually just about to get into that. I want you guys to think about all the things that we have talked about today in our summit, and how, just like Jen said, these conversations are great. They're wonderful that we have them, but also at the same time, what is the point of having them if it's just going to stay with us? So remember that you have a voice, and even though sometimes it feels like you don't, or that it's getting muffled, keep speaking up, keep saying something. It does mean something and someone will hear you. You may not always be the loudest person in the room, but you can also still reach some people. And so I want you guys to take that with you as we start to close on our summit today. And just remember the things that we talked about. And so to really understand that it starts with you, and someone will listen, and then it will keep going from there. Does anyone else have anything else to add? Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. We kind of made up for our time. I, once again, am very sorry about the technical difficulties we were having, but I do appreciate you being patient. And for our attendees that are not panelists, Please be looking out for our survey on the summit. We will be trying to get that to you no later than Sunday. I'd really, really appreciate it if you guys would fill that out for me. It's very important to share and to what we do here. We love your feedback. And just, yeah, thank you guys so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just like I said, attendees, please be looking out for that email. We'll be sending it real soon. Panelists, I'm going to get a hold of you guys soon as well, so I can kind of give you some final thoughts and stuff. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, Amber.
Bye.
Your dog is the cutest, by the way.
Thank you.